Hello everybody, my name is TomBurnz and welcome to the very first episode of the TomBurnz podcast. Let me get to this page. Hello. It's been a while since you've seen me on camera. Streams that I've been doing on a PS5 because it's a little bit laggy on here when I try and play games. So I was thought of this idea a couple of days ago of doing a podcast. Now, I did a podcast around about this time last year for before last year's Rumble. I did it with my friend John. It's on my channel. My friend John and his friend Ross. It was a great podcast to do. I really enjoyed it. We discussed lots of different things and stuff like that. The only thing I didn't like was the fact that we were sort of on a time limit. We only did like half an hour, and I didn't like that. Because I felt like I was on a time limit for what I wanted to discuss, and I don't really want to be on a time limit. So this is my own podcast, and it will go on as long as I see fit. I won't go on and on because obviously people don't want to watch a 5 hour long podcast, do they? I'll try and keep it as short as I can, but I'm also not gonna, rush in what I want to say. I've got a list of things on my phone here that I made notes of last night that I want to discuss. But if any of you have anything you want to discuss, get it in the chat. Get your opinions in the chat as well. This is like a talk show sort of thing. So, I welcome your opinions. I welcome your questions. And hopefully from time to time I'll get some guests on here. And we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna try and make it a regular thing. So obviously the first episode was going to be about the Rumble because the Rumble is coming around the corner. The next episode, I'll try and do one before WrestleMania, so it won't be about WrestleMania. I don't know what the next episode will be about, but we're gonna discuss everything on this podcast. We're not going to be afraid to discuss anything. We're going to discuss controversial things. We're going to discuss the big pay-per-views and and stuff like that. So we're not going to hide away from everything. Some of the subjects we will be talking about will be controversial, and if you don't like that, then you don't have to watch that certain episode. But yeah, this is what this podcast is all about. It's all about not being afraid to discuss anything, basically. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to have a guest today. I was trying to get a guest today, but they might pop up at some point, but they're not going to be here from the start, unfortunately. I did send them a message, but they haven't got back to me. So, but yeah, so just thought about it a couple of days ago, and I thought, you know what, I want to start doing a podcast because the one I did last year was supposed to be the start of something, and it's supposed to be the start of me, John, and on it, Ross as well doing this podcast. I don't think Ross was going to be there every time, but it was supposed to be the start of something, and it never really did. In fairness, John's been busy with his life. He's got a new baby and stuff like that, so it was never going to be as consistent as I potentially wanted it. So I think the only way of me doing a potentially regular podcast is if I do it on my own. You know what I mean? Or do it myself, do my own podcast. It was never going to be as... But yeah, so as you can see, behind me is the poster for this year's Royal Rumble, and that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with discussing this year's Rumble. And potential surprises, returns, who's going to win the Rumbles, as well as discussing some of the other matches that are happening at the Rumble as well, not just the Rumbles themselves. So I'll start off. We won't start off talking about one of the Rumbles, actually. We'll start off talking about the pitch black match between Bray Wyatt and LA Knight. Now, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine Bray Wyatt's first rivalry coming back to WWE to be against LA Knight, and I think that's a huge push for LA Knight to be Bray's first opponent. To say how hyped up Bray was and how big his return was. You know what I mean? For LA Knight to be the first opponent for Bray, that's pretty big for LA Knight. And I think it's a big push for him. And I think that's sort of, you can see how WWE view him. You know, they do view him quite seriously. Give me a second. Anyway, yeah. So I just closed that by accident. Oh, yeah. So yeah. So basically, I don't really know how to discuss this match because it's a match that we've never seen before. So how do I discuss a match that we've never seen before? How do I predict a winner of a match that I've never seen before? I mean, the obvious choice would be to go after somebody like the obvious choice would be to go for Bray Wyatt. You know, this is obviously a match that's in his favour. You know what I mean? Because Bray Wyatt's all about the spooky and the darkness and stuff like that. So it's obviously going to be a match that will be in his favour. So yeah, I mean, how do you bet against Bray in this match? But I can't really talk about the match itself because I don't know what the match entails. It's a pitch black match. I assume it's going to be in darkness, but I don't know what else it entails. I don't know if it's just a normal match, but just in the pitch black, or you know, I don't understand how it's going to work. Because if it's in the pitch black, how do we see? You know what I mean? So it'll be very interesting. I like these sort of matches that come about and are unique. You know what I mean? Because we don't see enough of them these days. You know, the unique matches, we don't see enough of them. So it's nice for there to be a unique match because I can't remember the last time we had a match that was unique that to a certain person. I think probably the last one was to do with Bray as well. It was the Inferno match, but that wasn't really unique because we'd seen an Inferno match before, but we hadn't seen one in ages. So that's that's that match really discussed. I mean, I don't know what else to really say about it. I mean, there's not a lot you can say about it because I don't know what it's going to entail. I don't know what the match is. You know what I mean? So there's not much else I can discuss in terms of that. But we go on to Roman versus Kevin now. I am well known not to be a massive Roman fan. I was a fan before he became the tribal chief, and even the first sort of 6 months of him being the tribal chief, it was great. It was something new. You know what I mean? His stories were fantastic. I mean, the story with Jay was absolutely amazing. I mean, I Quit Hell in a Cell match. Again, unique match. Never seen that sort of match before. We'd seen an I Quit match. We'd seen a Hell in a Cell match. But we'd never seen a Hell in a Cell I Quit match. So it was amazing. The story was amazing. And then you get to WrestleMania, and I'm thinking, right, he's going to lose the title at WrestleMania. I didn't expect him to hold it I didn't expect him to hold it past WrestleMania, and he did. And then I thought, okay, he's probably going to hold it for a while. Maybe he'll hold it till next WrestleMania. We're obviously going to give him a big push. You know, this is a new character. You know what I mean? His character's quite dominant and all this. And then he got to that WrestleMania. I believe he faced, it was Edge and Daniel Bryan, wasn't it? And I thought, yeah, he's losing this. And I honestly expected him to lose against Edge. I thought Edge was going to become the new world champion or the new universal champion. I mean, I thought at the very least Edge would get one more world championship run before he retired, and he's yet to have that. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm not saying it won't happen at all, but he's yet to have that match, and that he's yet to have any title, no matter world title. But yeah, and he retained again, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I was already bored of it by that point. Like, after 6 months, so probably a month after WrestleMania, after he retained it, the first WrestleMania that he had the championship for, I thought, this is a bit stale now. You know what I mean? Because all it was the Usos with him, teaming up with him, helping him every single match pretty much. Blah, 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 blah. And then it's just like, I was like, come on, WWE, it's getting stale now. You need to do something. If you're going to keep the title on him, you need to do something to make Roman interesting again, make Roman watchable again. And they didn't for ages. It was just the same old, same old. The Usos helping him in every single match, and he did have a couple of entertaining matches. I mean, the match against John Cena was great. He had a few matches against Brock Lesnar, which I really enjoyed. But I didn't really enjoy any of his other defenses. I enjoyed the Kevin Owens one, but that was before I got bored of Roman. Sorry. And then it was just, I don't know, I just felt like it ran its course, and WWE were not doing anything to keep Roman relevant. They weren't doing not relevant, weren't doing anything to keep Roman interesting. All they were doing was having him dominate everybody and retain. That was literally it. Like, there was no story arc, there was nothing. He'd come out not every week, because he wasn't at SmackDown every week, but every time he was at SmackDown or every time he was at Raw, he'd come out and he'd say, I smash everyone, and then he'd find out who his next opponent was. He'd say, I'm going to smash you, and it was just same old, and it was boring. But I'll give WWE its props. They decided to add something to Roman to make him interesting again, and that being Sami Zayn. Now, Sami Zayn makes a bloodline watchable because it's a story arc. It's a very interesting story. What's going to happen with Sami? It very much looks like the bloodline are going to turn on Sami, but will they? You know what I mean? What's going to happen at the Royal Rumble between Roman and Kevin? It makes it interesting. You know what I mean? Because Roman versus Kevin Owens, every time Roman has his match, he fucking smashes the person, and then that's it. It's over. But this particular match, because of the story arc and because of the story going into this match, it makes a Roman Reigns match actually watchable and interesting. Because I don't watch a lot of Roman matches anymore, because I know he's going to retain. So what's the point? What is the actual point in watching the match? You know what I mean? And I watched some of them. I watched the Logan Paul one because I had a feeling he might have lost that one. He didn't. It turned out to be an amazing match. But I don't watch a lot of them. I will watch the one at Royal Rumble because I'll be watching the Royal Rumble pay-per-view anyway. But it's going to be an interesting match because I honestly think that Sami Zayn's going to be involved in it somehow. He'll either try and make it up to the Tribal Chief and help the Tribal Chief win, or he'll accidentally cost the Tribal Chief, and that is when this bloodline will fully turn on Sami, or he'll purposely cost Roman. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting match though, and I can't make a prediction for it. Usually with a Roman match, I predict Roman's going to win, but I can't make that prediction because I honestly don't know what's going to happen, and that's the interesting thing about this match. Finally, we have a Roman match where we actually don't know what's going to happen, and that's brilliant. That is brilliant. I don't know of any other matches that are happening at the Royal Rumble at this point. I believe they're the only two singles matches announced at the moment, and then obviously we have our Rumbles. Let's get on to our Rumbles. We'll talk about the Women's Rumble first. A lot of rumours going around that Rhea Ripley's going to be the one that wins it. Becky Lynch, there's rumours she might win it. Here's the thing, right, for me. Now that Ronda Rousey's lost the SmackDown Women's Championship to Charlotte, I don't see Charlotte losing that championship before WrestleMania. Right? I just don't see it happening. So the question remains, we're obviously not going to get our Ronda versus Becky match. It's just not going to happen, and I don't know why they're not willing to do a Ronda versus Becky singles match. That's obvious what they should have been building up to. You know what I mean? When Ronda returned and Becky was champion, they should have had their match then. And everybody thought it was going to go that way. Ronda winning the Royal Rumble, she goes after Becky Lynch. It makes sense because Becky, at that point, had been the only one to pin Ronda Rousey. I'd been the only one to beat Ronda Rousey, and of course, Ronda Rousey being Ronda Rousey and being the proud woman she is and being the person who she is and doesn't like to be defeated and is annoyed that her undefeated run in WWE is over. You go after the person who's the person that's defeated you. Anybody would do that. Anybody would do that. But no, in WWE, they don't like to do things that make sense. They like to do things that don't make sense. Now, of course, in a way, it made sense for Ronda to go after Charlotte because they did have unfinished business as well. But in my opinion, the only person that's beat you in WWE trumps the person that beat you up. You can always go after them afterwards. You know what I mean? You go after the person that's been the only person that's beat you, and you show them that it was a fluke that they beat you, and then you beat them. But no, WWE, they go for the thing that still makes sense, but not as much sense. So, anyway, let's get back to this year's Royal Rumble. So, in terms of who I think is going to win the Rumble, I mean, the rumours were circulating that it was going to be Rhea versus Ronda at WrestleMania. I obviously can't see that happening now because I don't see Ronda winning a championship again before WrestleMania. I'm sorry about that. It just disconnected me for some reason. I have no idea. I have my Ethernet cable in the back of my PC and everything. I don't know why it just disconnected me. I'm sorry about that. It would do that in my first ever podcast. It's not even. This is not even taking up a lot of CPU because I'm not even playing the game or anything like that. It's literally just me talking. I've got a camera and I've got a picture. That's all I've got. It's not taking up a lot of CPU, so I have no idea why it just disconnected me. But anyway, like I was talking about, I don't know what's going to happen with Ronda. I mean, she could go over to Raw and she could start a rivalry with Becky. I mean, we still might get our Ronda Becky match because Becky is still a champion. Oh, hang on, no, she's not the Raw Women's Champion, is she? Bianca is. She could. Well, actually, you don't need a championship for the Ronda Becky match. You don't. So they still could have a big match at WrestleMania, Ronda versus Becky. Becky doesn't look like she's going to be. Well, she's rumored to win the Rumble, but if she doesn't win the Rumble, because the only two rumors I've seen is Rhea winning the Rumble or Jodie. I either if Becky doesn't win the Rumble, I see should do nighttime. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to do this podcast thing that I'm doing at nighttime. I'd rather do it in the day. Anyway, yeah, I think that if Becky doesn't win the Royal Rumble, I think that there's an opening for her to do something at WrestleMania, and Ronda's not doing anything at this moment in time. Is there going to be a Ronda Charlotte match at WrestleMania? Is there going to be a rematch? I see that rematch happening at Royal Rumble. I don't see it, being delayed until WrestleMania. It doesn't make sense because Ronda Rousey being who she is, she wouldn't want to wait. You know what I mean? She doesn't have the patience to wait. You know what I mean? But then WWE being WWE, they don't make sense today a lot of the time. So I don't know. The rumours are that it's either Rhea or Becky winning. Who do I think was going to win? I don't know why it would make sense for Rhea to win. She's not really done a lot over the last year. What has she done to deserve to win? What has she done to deserve a push? You know what I mean? I mean, since she's been part of the Judgment Day, she's done fuck all, really. She's been boring. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think Rhea should be the one to win. I don't think she's done anything to deserve to win the Rumble. I don't think she's over. I don't think usually the people that win the Rumble are the people that are either doing really well as a heel, you know what I mean, or they're massively over with the crowd. That's usually what happens. So I don't know. It's difficult for me to predict who I think is going to win the Women's Rumble. It really is. I mean, who do I think is going to show up? Surprise returns. I mean, who's out at the moment? with injury when it comes to the women. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Naomi could return at the Rumble. I mean, she is rumored to be coming back to WWE. We know Sasha Banks has gone to New Japan, um, but um, Naomi is rumored to be coming back. Of course, her husband's in WWE. She wasn't going to go anywhere else. Um, so Naomi could come back. I'm just trying to think of anybody else out injured. I don't think there is. I mean, obviously you could get your usuals coming back, as surprises like Lita, Trish, um, who else? Lita, Trish. Um, who we haven't seen come back in a Rumble? Stacy Keibler. That would be a good one to get back. Summer Rae could come back. Who else? Melina. I mean, the names are endless, really, with the surprises that could come back. I mean, usually with the women we see more than we do in the men's because there's less women that WWE want to use in the Rumble for some reason, and they want more surprises in the Rumble. I don't know. It's a weird one, but I don't know. It's I don't think so. Anyway, so um, it's hard for me to predict the winner. I've said who I think is going to potentially return, who I think might return. Surprises. The list is literally endless of who could be surprises. Will we see a Forbidden Door entrant? It's difficult to say. We got one last year with Mickey James. Could we see another one from Impact? I mean, WWE and Impact seem to seemingly have some sort of relationship now, so potentially we could see something like that. Um, what would be massive if Sasha Banks was a Forbidden Door entrant? Because really, Sasha doesn't need a contract to turn up at a Rumble. All she needs is a one-off payment from WWE. She'll want a lot, and I don't blame her. But that would be huge, Wouldn't it? Oh, she's done with WWE. She's done with WWE. She goes to New Japan. WWE are obviously open to doing Forbidden Door entrance and stuff like that now that Triple H is in charge. Um, and it could happen. That would, well, I say it could happen. It would be huge if it did, and I'm only saying this because I'm a huge Sasha Banks fan. Um, but I'd be happy to see Sasha turn up, and if I mean, there is rumours there are going to be Forbidden Door entrants. I don't know if in both Rumbles, but all I've heard is there is rumours that there is going to be Forbidden Door entrants, and it wouldn't surprise me. We got one last year, and Triple H is firmly in charge now, and seemingly is more open to doing things with other companies. I mean, look at what they did with that show in Japan. I think it was something to do with New Japan. I'm not 100% sure. They let Shinsuke go over there and do a match for a different company. I mean, that's unheard of when it comes to WWE. You know what I mean? So obviously Triple H is open to doing more things with different companies. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd be excited if there was Forbidden Door entrance. I mean, it would be huge. Um, and who knows, there may be. What I want, really, realistically, is I want Triple H to start being open to working with AEW because that would be huge. You know what I mean? Think about the entrance that we could have in the Rumble if AEW and WWE had some sort of relationship, some sort of partnership. It'd be huge. You could get the likes of Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega turning up in the Rumble, Darby Allin, Sting, um, just to name a few. And it would be huge. It would be huge if they turned up in the Rumble. I don't expect the Forbidden Door entrant to be coming from AEW. If it's going to come from anywhere, it'll be either New Japan or it'll be Impact. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, I can't really predict the winner of the Women's Rumble. I can't, because the two that are rumoured, I just don't see winning. But usually when people are rumoured to win, one of the people that is rumoured to win usually wins. I don't know. It's difficult to say. Difficult to say. I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I really don't. Anyway, I can't predict who's going to win the women's, so let's move on to the men's. The men's rumble, it's a difficult one. Well, it's not a difficult one. There's so many different rumours going around about the men's rumble. So many different things potentially happen at the men's rumble. And one of the rumours are that The Rock is going to be at the rumble, and he's going to win the men's rumble. Another rumour going around that Cody's going to win the men's rumble. So they're the two main rumours I've heard about the men's rumble. I mean, if you let's talk about The Rock just for a second, right? We've heard so many times that The Rock is going to turn up, and I understand people's skepticism. I get it. I get people's skepticism. I understand it. But at the same time, I think that this year, I think people will be very surprised because, and here's the thing, The Rock has been rumoured for years and years and years to be in the Rumble, right? He's always been one of the people that, not necessarily rumoured, but one of the people hope's going to turn up, and he never does, right? He never, in all the years that he's been rumoured to be in the Rumble, which I think the last 2 years he's not been rumoured, but for years and years and years before that he was rumoured to be in the Rumble. And all them years he was rumoured to be in the Rumble, not once was he ever rumoured to win it. And that's why I think this year is different. The fact that he's rumoured to win the Rumble makes me think more than ever that he is actually going to turn up, because like I said, people that are rumoured to win the Rumble usually end up winning. Now I know Cody is another rumoured person to win the Rumble. However, I just don't know. I just have a funny feeling that The Rock's going to turn up. And then you look at this poster, right? You look at the poster for the Royal Rumble of 2023, and look at how electrifying it is. It's got lightning and stuff like that. The Rock is known as the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. To me, that's a tease for The Rock. Look how electrifying it is. Now, WWE could be doing that just to tease us and it be nothing else. I don't think that's the case. The only thing I have against a Rock Roman match at WrestleMania is I don't think it needs a title. I think if it has a title on the line, I think it's predictable, and I think we all know who's going to win. We know that Roman's going to win because The Rock's not going to stay around to defend the title. And that's the thing. And I want The Rock versus Roman. I mean, maybe. I mean, if it's it doesn't need a title. The Rock versus Roman. I think it'll be a fantastic match. I think it'll be an interesting watch. I mean, The Rock in his first match since WrestleMania 29. Well, proper match since WrestleMania 29. I mean, we're 10 years on now. You know what I mean? That in itself would be amazing enough to see. We don't need a title. It would be too predictable, in my opinion. It would be too predictable for there to be a title on the line, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that this potentially is going to be a title on the line. Um, think The Rock's going to turn up. I do really think he's going to turn up, and I think people will be surprised when he does, because so many people, and very rightly, are sceptical, but I think they're going to be surprised this year. Cody Rhodes obviously is going to return at the Rumble. There's already things happening on Raw, you know, basically confirming that that's what's going to happen. Yeah. In terms of returns, I mean, who's out injured at the moment? Edge could come back. Hey, going back to the Women's Rumble for a second. I tell you who could come back at the Women's Rumble: Beth Phoenix. Beth Phoenix has been out injured for months now. She's not really a full-time wrestler, but she's been out injured for months now because Rhea Ripley used a steel chair on her head. Actually, what could happen is Beth Phoenix could return, cost Rhea the Royal Rumble, and it could set up a WrestleMania match between the two. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that. I'd rather see Rhea do that, because at least that's a story that makes sense for Rhea. It makes no sense for her to just come out of nowhere and win the Rumble when she's done nothing of value over the last year. You know what I mean? Like, it makes no sense. So I'd be more happy to see that than anyway. I'd be more happy to see that than to see Rhea win the Rumble. And I think that potentially could happen. I don't know why I didn't think of that when I was discussing the Women's Rumble. But back to the Men's Rumble, Edge could return. Anybody else out injured that could return? Anybody? I'm struggling to think of people that are out injured. I mean, obviously Cody's going to return. I've already established that one. Bobby Lashley, he's out at the moment. He's not been back in WWE since he was fired and then brought back. Seth Rollins, he's not been seen as he's injured. I think he could return. Yeah, I think surprises. I don't know. I don't know what surprises there could be. Because with the men's, there's not usually as many. I mean, Cena, he could maybe turn up. Yeah, Cena. Maybe Brock returns. We've not seen Brock for a little while, have we? In fact, we've not seen Brock since SummerSlam. No. Yeah, no. Did you see Brock in Saudi? Did he face somebody in Saudi? I don't remember whether we saw Brock at Saudi. I can't remember. Anyway, we've not seen Brock for a while anyway, regardless. So Brock could return. One-off appearances. I mean, again, Forbidden Door entrance. We didn't get a Forbidden Door entrance for the men's Rumble last year. Rumored to be Forbidden Door entrance. We've got to have one for the men this year, surely. I don't know who could be though. That's the thing. Like, it's only going to be somebody from Impact or New Japan. It's not going to be from AEW. I'd be massively surprised if it was. Yeah, don't know. It's difficult to say. Well, how long have we been streaming for? Nearly 40 minutes. Right, I think it's time for us to move on from discussing this year's Rumble, because we've been discussing this year's Rumble for 40 minutes. And yeah, I don't want this to be going on and on and on. So the next thing I wanted to discuss was greatest Rumble competitor. Now, in fact, before we discuss this one, let me just have a quick sip of my drink. My mouth's dry because I've been talking so much. Right. So, greatest Royal Rumble competitor. There's arguments for a few different people. You could argue that Kane is the greatest Royal Rumble competitor. He's never won a Rumble, but look at what he has to do Rumbles. Look at how many he's turned up to. Look at how many eliminations he's got. You know, in my personal opinion, it's not all about how many times you've won it. Now, obviously that counts, but I don't think it's all about that. You know what I mean? Because let's just say this, for instance, right? You could have won 3 Rumbles, but you could have won them all by just eliminating one person and staying outside until the very end. That doesn't make you one of the greatest Royal Rumble competitors. That makes you one of the slyest, but it doesn't make you one of the greatest. Alright. So I was just checking something. Anyway, yeah. This is where it'd be better to actually have someone to debate with. You know what I mean? Because I can only give my personal opinion on who I think the greatest Royal Rumble competitor is, and I think you've got an argument to say that Kane could be, obviously Austin. I think Dolph, Kofi. I think there's arguments there because I just have like literally just how many times I've appeared in the Rumble, and every time Dolph appears in a Rumble, he lasts a long time. He never ever really gets eliminated quickly, and that's a good feat. You know what I mean? That is a good feat. I mean, Kofi, he could go down as one of the greatest Royal Rumble competitors because of how many times he's been in it. Every single year, he does things to stay in that you just never would imagine somebody being able to do. He doesn't always last a long time, but I think the other two things that I've just said really could cement him to be one of the greatest Royal Rumble competitors. There's arguments to say potentially Cena, Randy Orton, they both won 2. Batista, he's won 2. Like I said, it's not all about how many you've won. You know what I mean? It's not. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say I think Kane is the greatest Royal Rumble competitor of all time because he's all round one of the best competitors. He has the second highest record of people eliminated in one Rumble. I believe he has the most eliminations in altogether in Rumble history. I believe he has been in the most Rumbles. He's never won a Rumble, but if you think about them to me, he's an all round. Not only has he been in the most, but he's also done the most in Rumble history in terms of eliminations, and he has the second most eliminations in a single Rumble. He did have the most, but now Braun's taken that. But then, really, I believe Braun did it in the greatest Royal Rumble, which was the big, 50-man, so I don't really think you can count that. So in a normal Rumble, I believe Kane still has that record. So you look at them records and you look at you list them things, and I think it's hard to say. I think it's hard to be against Kane being the greatest Rumble competitor of all time. I think it's hard to be against that, and that's what my personal opinion is. And this is when it would be nice to have a debate, but there's nobody in the chat, and my guest obviously isn't coming on today, so hopefully I'll get him on for the next one. But yeah, that's my opinion on greatest Rumble competitor. My opinion is Kane. So next thing I wanted to talk about was greatest surprise slash return entrant. Now, it's difficult for me to talk about the earlier Rumbles because I think the first Rumble that I properly watched was probably 2000. So before that, I've seen Rumbles before that since, but they're not exactly very memorable for me because I've not watched them that many times. Whereas from 2000 onwards, I've seen all them Rumbles multiple times. So it's hard for me to say, all time, because I don't really know the Rumbles from the start to 2000, well, to 1999, but from 2000 onwards I do. So greatest surprise slash return. So greatest surprise, I'm trying to think like the person that surprised people the most. So not a return, because I'm not talking about a return of somebody on the current roster. I'm talking about like a surprise, like a legend surprise. And I'm trying to think of somebody who turned up and who it was a massive surprise when they turned up. Now this could be in the women's, it could be in the men's. I'm just trying to think back at the at the rumbles. Um, I'm gonna go. I can't remember what rumble it was, but I'm gonna go for the Big Show because it really was so No, that's a return because that's current roster. No, surprise, legend surprise. Like somebody that a legend that people were genuinely surprised to see. You know what? It's so difficult because I'm trying to think back at all the rumbles, and it's difficult to think off the top of my head. Um, it really is difficult. Um, okay, so greatest surprise for me has to be. Um, I think it was in 2008. I think that's the one that seen return at the end, wasn't it? And won. So my greatest return has to be um, Roddy Piper in 2008 because I'm thinking back at it now, and 2008 is probably the Rumble I've maybe watched the most because it's just such a fantastic Rumble. So many surprises, so many legends, so many big names. Then you have Cena returning at the end, which was just massive. Nobody thought he was going to be back that quick from his injury. Just amazing. It was just an amazing Rumble. But we'll get on to talking about my favourite Rumble afterwards. Um, but yeah, um, Roddy Piper 2008. Nobody thought Roddy Piper was going to turn up. Nobody thought he was going to be there. Nobody thought he was going to be in the Rumble. And then all of a sudden his music hits, and you can tell by the way the commentators reacted, JR and Jerry Lawler. You can tell by how they reacted that they were genuinely surprised that Roddy Piper was there. So that's my opinion on that. Greatest return, well, it's a difficult one for that because um, I think it's a tie for me. Greatest return for me is a tie between John Cena in 2008, which I've just talked about. Because again, the reason why I think that's a tie for greatest return is because nobody thought he was going to be there. Nobody thought he was going to be able to be back that quick. And the fact that he was able to get back that quick was fantastic. You know what I mean? It was great, and like I said, the fact that he was able to get back so quick from his injury just shows the sort of person that John Cena is, and nobody thought he was going to be there, so it was a massive surprise because nobody thought he was going to be there. So that's why I think it's tied. But of course, I think you know what the other one I'm going to say is, and I think the other greatest return has to be Edge in 2021. 2021 Edge. No, it was 2020, wasn't it? Yeah, well, it was, wasn't it? Was it? Yeah, it was. It was. Because I remember, I remember them having the small arenas in it and being during COVID. So yeah, it was 2020. Sorry. I can't believe Edge has been back that many years already. But yeah, 2020. Edge in 2020. Nobody thought Edge was going to be able to ever come back. Nobody thought Edge was going to be at that Rumble. Yes, he was rumoured, but nobody thought he was actually going to turn up. I didn't think he was going to turn up myself. And then I honestly, when I was watching the Rumble, I was watching it at my friend John's. You know, the one that I did the podcast with last year. I usually go to his nearly every single year for the Rumble. And yeah, I was at his, and I swear to God, when his music hit, I've not reacted like that in a long time when it comes to a Royal Rumble return or return in general. I literally jumped out my seat and I screamed or shouted. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it because it had been rumoured, but I just thought, no, there's no way he's going to ever be able to come back. And then there he was. So in my opinion, it's a tie between John Cena in 2008 and Edge in 2020. What an amazing return both of them were. Neither one was predicted. Nobody thought they were ever going to be there, and then they were. So that's that. What have we been doing now? 50 minutes. I'll try and get it done for just over an hour, because obviously I don't want to be going on and on. So, I mean, I've only got a few more things I want to discuss anyway. So, favourite winner. So, my favourite winner of a Rumble. So, when it comes to favourite Rumble winner, there's a few different aspects of this for me. So, one, it has to be somebody who I think deserved it. Two, I think it has to be somebody who I think would potentially set up a great match against either champion at the time. And three, somebody who I think maybe is long overdue it or something like that. So looking back at the Royal Rumble winners, and again, it's difficult to sort of pick a favourite Rumble winner from all time because I've never really watched the Rumbles from the start to 1999. I have, but not all of them and not properly. Not like I've watched from 2000 onwards. But I would have to say, favourite Rumble winner, looking back at the Rumble winners, I think it's got to be Rey Mysterio in 2006. He did it for Eddie Guerrero. It was a great story arc. You know, it was 100% the right thing for WWE to do. You know, WWE don't often get it right, and WWE don't often do the right thing, but they 100% did. And then they did have Rey Mysterio with the title at the Rumble, at the WrestleMania as well, which was 100% again the right decision. So yeah, my favourite Rumble winner has to be Rey Mysterio. 100%. I can't think of anybody else who I would put over Rey Mysterio. And it's mainly, I mean, I'm a big Rey Mysterio fan anyway, but it's mainly because of the story arc and because of what had happened and because it was the right thing to do. They needed to have somebody close to Eddie win it, You know what I mean? And they couldn't really have Chavo win it because Chavo wasn't a big enough star. They could have had Benoit win it, but I believe Benoit, I think he was sort of at the tail end of his career, so he wasn't really the big star he once was. Um, so it made sense for Rey Mysterio to win it because he was sort of still in his prime, sort of thing, and he'd never won the World Championship before, so it was a nice way for him to win his first World Championship doing it for Eddie. Sorry, I just received a message there. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I don't think there's anybody I could put ahead of Rey Mysterio in favorite Rumble winner. I look back at all the other Rumble winners, and don't get me wrong, a lot of a lot of, I see a lot of, a lot of the Rumble winners, that it was completely the right decision, it was deserved, and all this stuff, but there's been no Rumble where there's been such a story arc like Rey Mysterio, where he was doing it for his deceased best friend. You know what I mean? There's been no Rumble where there's been that sort of story. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it's hard to go against Rey Mysterio for favourite Rumble winner. Anyway, we move on, and we go to what's the next thing I have here to discuss. So my favourite Rumble. Okay, so only one more thing to discuss after this, and um, then that'll be it. Then I think. Um, as I said, I don't want to keep going on and on and on and on. Because nobody wants to watch a 2 hour long fucking podcast, do they? And I've been streaming nearly an hour. So favorite Rumble. I mean, it's hard. Like I was discussing it before, and I discussed it before. Um, I was supposed to really, but that's sometimes how podcasts go. Uh, I don't know how was it. Yeah. Favorite Rumble. I discussed it before. I think 2008. I think it had it all. I think it had the surprises, the returns. The ending was fantastic with John Cena returning at number 30. The right person won. It was just a great Rumble, and it's hard to. And it was in Madison Square Garden as well. I mean, I think it was only the second Rumble that had happened in Madison Square Garden. It had everything. It literally had everything. Uh, so it's hard to really go against that. I mean, is there anything that comes close to it? I mean, the only one that really comes close to it is the one that Rey Mysterio won for Eddie. Like literally, it's the only one that comes close, and I still think the 2008 one was better. I think that it was the right person won. I just think everything was right about it. I think they had some good returns that nobody surprises that nobody thought was going to happen. They had people returning nobody thought was going to return. It was just had it all. It was fantastic. It really was fantastic, and I don't really know what else to say about it apart from that it was fantastic. And in my opinion, 2008 was the best. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know I know some of you, none of you really been here for the podcast today, but it doesn't stop you watching it another time and getting in the comments down below and putting your opinions. I'll reply to as many comments as I can. But yeah, get your opinions in the comments down below. If you're watching this on demand at a different time, get it in, get it in, get your comments in, definitely 100%. I'm eager to hear what you have to say about the things I've been discussing today, because at the end of the day, for me, that's what a podcast is all about. It's about debates, it's about answering questions, and it's about hearing people's opinions, as well as giving my own opinions as well. And that's what I want this podcast to be all about. I want it to be not just about my opinions, but about the fans' opinions. Um, but yeah, anyway, that was my favourite Rumble, 2008. As I said, the only thing that comes close is 2006 when Ray won it for Eddie, but yeah, 2008. And then our final subject to discuss is the greatest Rumble. So we've discussed my favourite Rumble. Now, what in my opinion is the greatest Rumble? Now, when it comes to discussing the greatest Rumble, you have to think of a few different things. You have to think of the winner of that year. You have to think of what happened during the Rumble, how entertaining it was, how many what returns and surprises there were. There's a few different things you have to discuss when it comes to the greatest Rumble, and discussing the greatest Rumble is completely different than discussing my favorite Rumble, because my favorite Rumble is my opinion on what Rumble I liked the best. The greatest Rumble is completely different, because this is not like the greatest Rumble is not what I want to watch the most. It has to be what I think had the best in every aspect of what I've just said. And I honestly think the greatest Rumble, and this might be controversial because he's not somebody that really should be discussed, but I honestly think the greatest Rumble was the one that Benoit won. He won it from number 2. I think it was 2004, and then the reason why I think it was the greatest Rumble was because of what happened at WrestleMania following that Rumble. He won the championship, and we got one of the greatest moments in wrestling history that isn't discussed anymore because of Benoit, which was the ending of WrestleMania 20, where him and Eddie hugged and they both celebrated as champions. Like literally one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time that is not really discussed anymore because of what happened to Benoit. But like I said, this podcast is all about discussing everything, and I'm not afraid to mention anything. I'm not afraid to mention names. I'm not gonna blacklist anybody from this podcast. Literally anything pretty much goes on this podcast to a certain extent, obviously. You know what I mean? I don't want to get banned from YouTube. But yeah, honestly, and it is controversial to say because of the winner, but I think the right person won it that year. I think the ending was fantastic. I think there was some good returns at that year. I think the fact that he won it from number 2 was just fantastic. Was it number 2 or was it number 1? It might have been number 1 actually. Um, but yeah, it was that, in my opinion, is the greatest Rumble because of what followed. The Rumble itself was fantastic and great, but it also what followed and the fact that the right person won it. You know what I mean? Yeah, that is the greatest Rumble in my opinion. Like I said, the greatest Rumble and my favorite Rumble are two different things. I don't think I've put the same subject twice because I haven't. You know what I mean? Like my favorite Rumble is completely different. Like my favorite Rumble is the one that I like to watch the most. I enjoy the most. The greatest Rumble is about you know literally the greatest Rumble. Like it's completely different to my favorite. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We've been live for just over an hour. I think that's a good sort of time to to stop the podcast now. But I hope you enjoyed the first ever TomBurnz podcast. The episode was all about the Royal Rumble, of course, because the Royal Rumble is coming up. My next episode will be after the Royal Rumble. I'll do one after the Royal Rumble. I don't know what it's going to be about yet. Like I said, there'll be different subjects every time. And obviously, when there's a big pay-per-view coming up, so like WrestleMania or like SummerSlam, we'll discuss that pay-per-view. So, you know, the only thing is, like, next year, if I'm still doing this podcast, when it comes to this time next year, will I do another Royal Rumble podcast? Of course I will. It's difficult, though, because I've already told you what my favourite Rumble is and stuff like that, so it's going to be difficult to find things to talk about. But hopefully by that point, I'll have, you know, quite a bit of a following and people will want to chat and stuff like that. And, you know, if I can keep this going regularly, then, you know, hopefully that will happen. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and the next episode of this will be after the Royal Rumble. Keep an eye out on the community tab of my channel, because I'll post when I'm going to be doing another podcast next. It will be after the Rumble, so it'll be in a few weeks. It won't be soon. I don't know what the subject will be, but as I said, keep an eye on the community tab, and I'll keep you updated. I might even do a poll to see what people want the next subject to be, or I might just choose one. I don't know yet. I've not made that decision. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed the podcast, and I'll see you for the next one after the Rumble. Bye.